people who have grown up with immense privilege and abundance are idolizing poverty and living in poverty because isn't it so simple and isn't it less complicated, and you don't have to have injections for things and you don't have to go into hospital to have checkups for things. I know it sounds absurd, but that's the idyllic...
The noble peasant.
Right, and I've been to some of these communities. When I was hanging out with the hippies, I would go and visit, and that was essentially how they were trying to live. I'm literally just asking questions, and they're saying, "Is someone paying you, Sion?" And I didn't like it. It's quite upsetting, actually. And I think, why do you think that? You're not even allowed to question that. That's not right. It's very difficult. There was not a lot of good information about nuclear at the time, and I wanted to write a book that if I'd read it then, if I read this 10 years ago, it would have challenged me. It would have made me think. And I probably would have gone, this is what I should be promoting and thinking about. These technologies, not just nuclear, but desalination, good applications of AI, not just get rid of it all.
Hello and welcome to another IEA podcast. I have a very special guest with me today. My name, by the way, is Christopher Snowden, Head of Lifestyle Economics here at the IEA. And my guest is Zion Lights, who has just published a new book called Energy is Life. And we're going to talk all about it. Thank you very much for coming to the IEA.
Great, thank you for inviting me.
Great to see you and great to know you've got a new book out. This is the big one, as far as I'm concerned.
This is the opposite to my last book, if you think about it.
Go on, tell us about your last book.
Published in 2015. Mm-hmm. Basically how to live with a low carbon footprint. Yes. So it was about promoting energy scarcity, which someone who's really involved in the environmental movement, that was what we did. Had really good reviews, actually. Got good reviews from The Guardian, from The Telegraph, because we were doing the right thing as environmentalists. And obviously, as you know, I've come on a long journey since then and realised that's not the message. I do not approve of that book anymore. And I needed to write something to rewrite the story, basically.
Yeah, great.
And
So that was all about reducing consumption. And this is about creating green energy, basically, or clean energy.
And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think it's a misconception that this isn't about reducing consumption, because actually it's promoting technologies that do that anyway. That's like a bonus, isn't it? If you go from dirty technologies to cleaner technologies, if you go to nuclear energy, for example, from fossil fuels, then it's cleaner anyway.
It's cleaner, yeah. But you don't need to reduce your consumption as an individual in order to facilitate.
No, but it reduces emissions. So that kind of consumption emissions argument is where I was coming from before, which is still the predominant argument of the environmental movement, of those groups. But yeah, it's wrong.
So for those who don't know you, do you want to give us a quick recap on the last 10 years of
your
life?
So I was very involved in the environmental movement. I used to be a spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion, set up their climbing reporting newspaper, The Hourglass. Also did a lot of TV for them. But my activism goes much further back. I was very involved in almost all the major groups, and not just environmental groups, but also human rights organizations. So it was very much my kind of tribe, my people that was around. And I broke out of that, basically. It did take a long time, but it is very hard to leave your peers and the people that you've kind of grown up around even. But yeah, I started to disagree with them on a lot of different things, particularly different technologies, because it is a anti-technology movement. I mean, I say that, but obviously they like things like solar and wind, and they are still technologies, but they don't consider those to be technologies. So I had to think about all of that and separate it and work it out in my own mind when I was surrounded by people who basically would say, don't question it. Why are you questioning it?
I literally say that. I mean, reading a book, I was quite shocked by how
it's really
censorious they are. I mean, they literally kicked you out of Green Party.
I left the Green Party over differences. It was over nuclear, but the funny thing is I wasn't pro-nuclear at that time. I wouldn't describe myself as pro. I was just interested. I was literally just, and that's what, it was a red flag for me, because I thought, I'm literally just asking questions. And they're saying, is someone paying you, Sion? And I didn't like it. It's quite upsetting, actually. And I think, why do you think that? You're not even allowed to question that. That's not right. I mean, I know it seems obvious, but for me, it was one of the major first things that made me go, maybe these aren't my people. But it's all I knew. These are the people I spend all my time with. And so it was kind of, for a while, being dragged back into that thinking and then trying to break out. And, it's very difficult. There was not a lot of good information about nuclear at the time. And I wanted to write a book that if I'd read it then, if I read this 10 years ago, it would have challenged me. It would have made me think. And I probably would have gone, this is what I should be promoting and thinking about these technologies, not just nuclear, but desalination, good applications of AI, not just get rid of it all, humans are bad. So that's why I wrote it, because there's a deficit of fair and balanced information about some of these technologies. And it's very hard if you're in any kind of group or activist movement. It's very hard to go against the tide and to have different opinions and to air different opinions. And if you can't do those things, you can't develop your thinking and your thinking process. So I eventually got there, and then eventually put it all down in one place. But this was the book I was meant to write.
Yeah. And do you think many people in the likes of Just Stop Oil actually will read it? Or have they already denounced it?
They might read it and burn it.
Yeah.
Read it.
Well, they're all sales, aren't they?
I've had some interesting emails actually from some people. I do get a bit of hate mail now and again. I did get someone saying, "I hope your book fails."
And they all kind.
Could
have been worse.
Some people are upset. Yeah, I don't get as many now. Nuclear's become much more acceptable. I don't get as many now as I did 5 years ago. But I've also had some unexpected people from, some people I knew from way back in Extinction Rebellion who've commented, "Oh yeah, I'll read that."
All right.
Oh, good, because I know that they're on the fence, but they don't talk about it because you can't talk about it even now.
Right.
You can't talk about it in those groups, even if they're privately kind of questioning. And so it might, help to change some of their minds, hopefully.
Well, that'd be good. And so since 2020, is it? You've been a sort of committed pro-nuclear
2020 was when I kind of came out, for want of a better phrase, publicly, which was, started the ball rolling. No one was kind of doing it. It was off the back of that Andrew Neil interview where he was asking me, he was really pressing me, what are the solutions? And at that point, I'd already changed my mind on nuclear.
Right.
I already knew that it has to be part of the solution. He was specifically saying, what are we going to do for energy? And I didn't feel I could say it because I was there as a spokesperson, but I was also kicking myself inside thinking, this is a big moment. A lot of people are watching and no one ever talks about nuclear. And I was having this battle inside. And I didn't say it, but I basically said, I remember that sitting there in that interview and I just said what I felt, which was, I'm not here to give you the answers, which is terrible. It really upset everybody. Everybody at Extinction Rebellion really upset them. They said, you should have said we want political reform. You should have said we want citizen assemblies. I said, he was asking me about energy. Yeah. He was asking me, how do we replace gas? You can't say we need political reform. Yeah. That was what their media training was. Their media training was always pivot to these points. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I just sat there. I just can't do it. And it was after that, after the horrible public backlash where everybody kind of went, who's this idiot? She doesn't know anything. Right? I thought, these guys are just, I took this role to help them get good messages out, and I failed.
Yeah,
because I can't.
But they put you in an impossible position.
I can't get those messages out while I'm in this group. Well, when they offered me the position, they said very clearly, we won't control what you say.
All right.
And that, and they didn't really, because I could have said,
go for nuclear.
Right.
What would have happened to you if you'd said that?
That's the thing. The backlash was so bad anyway. I should have. I should have. But it's very hard sitting in the spotlight on live television, knowing what the right thing is. I think I did the right thing because then I went away and then I thought about it and then I wrote some op-eds explaining why I hadn't given the answers. And I basically said it's because we can't. We're not allowed to give those answers. And that was important. That needs to be said. Obviously, it upset them more. But I think for some of them as well, it was a little bit of reflection because there were some good people in those groups. And I think it was a good sort of moment to say to the public, maybe this group that's telling you that we're all going to die if we don't take action is not actually supportive of the action that would lead to the results that they say they want.
Yes.
I know it's a leap of thought and you have to kind of also challenge yourself because those are the good guys. We've always believed they're the good guys. How can they be wrong? Actually, if you look at what the environmental movement has done, and I know you know because you've read it, and I've written about it in there, so many bad things. so many bad things over the years. So not just protesting nuclear, but protesting gene editing, protesting
Vaccines.
Vaccines. Yeah, vaccines is a big one, actually, that I also had conflicts with people over.
I didn't realise that was such a big thing.
Yeah. So when I started out writing, for a magazine called Juno Magazine. It's a very hippie print magazine. It doesn't have a huge readership, but it has a very dedicated readership. And it's kind of people trying to live ethically or with a low carbon footprint, natural remedies. So there's a lot of stuff in there that I was already kind of, not comfortable with necessarily. But I also thought people should be able to write what they want. That's okay. And make up their own minds, right? But I had clashes there as well. So I was co-editor, but I had clashes there where I'd say, could we write this? No. People don't want to hear that, Zion. Well, sometimes it worked. And so you'd get someone writing something about vaccination and it would be a really convincing piece, but it would be false information. So there's definitely arguments you can have, but it would be saying things like, it does this to your brain, it does this to your heart. And I'd go away and look it up and I'd think, no. And so sometimes I would be able to get a compromise with the editor and she'd say, all right, you write, we'll have one side, one page, and you write the other side. So I was already kind of pushing back on that. And yeah, it's a big thing. And all my friends, so I had a daughter and I started going to baby groups, and the people that I fell in with were the hippie kind of green parents, and they were all anti-vaccination, all of them. And so again, I was the outlier because I was kind of, maybe because, I'd grown up with a knowledge of what it's like for my, family back home, parents, in my parents' villages where they don't have access and they do, these diseases are very much still alive, whereas we've kind of forgotten, I think.
Well, they're coming back now, thanks to these people.
I know. And even here, measles outbreaks.
Yeah.
But,
it comes down to sort of naturalistic fallacy, I suppose.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
These things are not natural. Same with inorganic fertilizers.
Yeah.
Same to some extent with nuclear energy.
And
sun and wind is kind of natural.
And you could say that a virus is natural, but so what?
Well, it is, yeah.
I mean, it's good.
Nature's not always the best thing.
It does, but it's it's always this kind of. It's always this kind of idea that we're the good guys. We want to be safe and protected, but we don't care about everyone else. This is like there is this Malthusian thread that runs through all of these groups. It all comes down to, there's a lot of misanthropy. There's a lot of believing that, for example, we destroy the planet, climate change.
Yeah.
We cause environmental destruction. We've caused species to go extinct. Therefore, we should suffer. And so there were people who would say to me, well, if there's a virus that it wipes people out, Zion, it's about time.
Right.
They were more on the
it's not
extreme
the
end.
people, presumably, not themselves.
That's what I'm saying, but not in our circle.
In the poorer countries, primarily, I guess.
Sadly, yeah, absolutely. And obviously, again, I would push back, but a lot of the time, other people haven't thought their arguments through, so there isn't anything to really discuss there. It's almost like slogans, and then I would ask more questions or try to get a bit further into it, and there's nothing there.
They just get angry.
There's baseless. It's just like, I believe it because she believes it, and she believes it because he believes it, and their parents believe it. So it's just passed down. And nuclear was like that. It's just a passed down fear. If you actually start saying what you're worried about, almost everybody will say waste. And they say, what are you worried about waste for? I don't know. It leaks. These are the sorts of answers I'd get when I would do public engagement stores, handing out bananas, and I'd say, well, what about waste? Isn't it dangerous? And I'd say, well, it hasn't killed anybody. And they sort of say, let me think about it. And there wouldn't really be a reason. Yeah. It's just something that's caught on.
Well, funnily enough, that was going to be my next question, because you say in the book that the question you get asked the most is, what about the waste?
Waste, even
so
today.
What about the waste? Is this thing the waste come from The Simpsons, do you think?
Yeah, I think pop culture in general, but The Simpsons definitely, almost everyone I speak to has that memory of The Simpsons. And it's not just waste, it's also the most evil character and enterprise is the nuclear industry, which, if you know people in the industry, it's just nothing like that. These are engineers, these are technicians, these are like really scientific people. But obviously, Mr. Burns, we all grew up with Mr. Burns, and he's still there doing evil things, running the nuclear power plant. And then you've got Homer, who, you see in the intro, he's supposed to be managing the waste. Yeah. And it just, there's like this green acidic thing flies somewhere. I think it's like a rod or something. Wow. They don't look like that, but that's how it's portrayed. So we all had that image, and then it's repeated. So when I was in Greenpeace, we did use that imagery. So the yellow barrels, that if you look up any article on waste, you'll usually get these yellow barrels with like green liquid drooping on. So it's absolutely nothing like what they look like.
No, what are they actually like?
Just one big white, plain, boring cask. That's it.
Made of
nothing outside.
Solid metal.
Outside is concrete. Several layers inside, because you do have to be shielded from the radiation. Yeah, sure. There's only a small amount of waste in there. There's actually, I think this is a misconception about waste in general. There's just not a lot of it. The high-level waste that goes in those casks, sure, we do have to shield ourselves from it, but we do that very successfully, and it's very safe. Like it's boring, actually. I've been up to these casks and had a look for myself. And when you think, wow, this room of casks, got 6 rooms, there's 6 casks in this room. This single room is like all the electricity from my family's entire generation, lifetimes of energy. This is the expenditure. This is what's left. That's actually a really small amount. Most waste is low-level waste, and that's different. And that's even created by nuclear medicine. The gloves and the lab coat.
And what do we do with that?
Just clean it. Just get disposed.
That doesn't get buried or anything.
No.
Need it.
No, the radiation dissipates very quickly, and it actually does with high-level waste too. It has a half-life, so you can kind of look at it on a graph. I mean, the graph's in the book, but it comes down very quickly. The radioactivity. It's just that it does still remain radioactive long term. But then, so do when you think about it, a lot of wastes are dangerous long term, and we bury them. We already do that for other industries, not for nuclear. For other industries, if you've got arsenic or cadmium or whatever, they put them in the ground, they bury them. So we already do that, and we already have solutions to it. So that should make you question, why is all the focus on waste then? Nobody talks about solar panel waste. Nobody talks about wind farm waste. Nobody bloody talks about fossil fuel waste. I mean, we talk about fossil fuels, we don't like fossil fuels, but nobody talks about air pollution, which is what I would say is the biggest waste. Because why have dirty air when you can have clean air? In that case, you can also have some carbon capture. But again, a lot of these groups are against that technology. Yeah,
of course they are. Shouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's also not very practical, is it?
No. But we should be putting money into hopefully improve, because we're never going to completely wean off of fossil fuels, not unless we develop something completely new tomorrow. Then in the meantime, we should be doing all these other things, advanced tech, and and that is happening. I don't think we should ever throw anything out and just say that's a waste of time and energy, because you don't know where the next breakthrough's coming from. But and we do put a lot of money into fusion research, and that's probably still, at least a decade away. Some people still think it's decades away. There's breakthroughs all the time.
Do you think that 0 by 2050 is realistic?
I've never thought that was realistic.
Even if you were in charge?
When we set that...
I mean, is it possible under any kind of scenario?
Oh, it's possible, yeah. I mean, look, France did it in about 12 years, decarbonised, 80% clean energy.
Decarbonised the electricity grid, but not the entire economy, right?
Yeah. No. We could do it for electricity. We could do it easily for electricity, I think. We've got everything we need. With a lot of nuclear power. Everything, I mean, that does lead on to everything else, because we're already kind of electrifying a lot of things. So the more we electrify industry, the more we have electric cars, or, heat pumps haven't really taken off. But the idea was, if we electrify that, instead of a gas cooker, you have an electric hob, fine, that's also better for you anyway. In theory, if you had a really big drive to do it, you could probably get quite a clean grid. It's never going to be 100%. But when we set that goal in Extinction Rebellion, we knew that. We were just setting, of course, it's going to be as soon as possible. It's actually 2030 it began with.
I think it's 2025.
And it might have been. And then...
It was quite a...
and then governments pushed it out and pushed it out and pushed it out. And it is an activist tactic to put pressure on. And I mean, in a way it worked. But the issue, I think, is that, net zero came to mean wind and solar. I don't know where that came from, actually. Yeah. But it shouldn't be synonymous with the and biomass. Yeah, it shouldn't be because it's renewable. So it came to mean renewable, which just very hazy phrase anyway that I don't really like using. When it could have just been whatever's cleaner and more efficient. And if it was just that, all ideology aside, you are going to end up building a lot of nuclear. You just are.
And what you mentioned heat pumps. I just want to ask you about those. What do you make of them? I see Dale Vince is not a fan. and the general house owner.
I know, yeah, they have not taken off. I mean, I don't have one. I've looked into it. I think it's one of those things where once people start getting them, the technology improves, people's expertise around them improves. In theory, they're a good idea, but I know there are lots of other issues. People don't like the noise. They take up a lot of space, and a lot of us have small houses.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, that sometimes it's when you start building the technology and more money goes into it that you might create something a bit more compact or a bit more efficient. Yeah, they haven't taken off.
They haven't, have they?
No. But something does need to replace
gas boilers.
Yeah.
Somehow.
But
there's not really anything right now for the normal person.
No. They're also very expensive. But
yeah,
again, because
that's the main thing. Even with
people aren't. I mean, but that happened with other technologies. But because lots of people kind of went for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand why. I think, yeah. Again, we need to be putting more money into innovation. I think for some of these technologies.
There must be huge incentives already for people to innovate in this area, isn't there? Even without the government. The government is putting.
I don't know a lot of companies doing it though. If you think like contrasting with the amount of nuclear startups, I couldn't even name you. There's so many.
Are there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so this is
here and abroad,
right?
Everywhere. Every other day is a new startup. We're making a new reactor. Our reactor's going to be the best reactor.
Okay, so that's what I was asking you about. Because I mean, you're pushing an open door maybe when it comes to nuclear power. I think we need lots more nuclear power stations. The question is who's going to build them. And as a free market think tank, we'd like the private sector ideally to do it, but they seem that keen to do it. Perhaps partly because it's a huge upfront cost and very long-term returns. Now, if push comes to shove, we need nuclear power. If no private companies want to produce them, I'm happy, I guess, for the state to do it. But you seem to be saying there's a lot more private sector involvement these days. So if the government wanted to hire someone to build a nuclear power station, they could.
So it's small modular technology.
Right, well, that's okay.
Small modular. Cool. So there are a number of companies, so many companies competing, trying to build the best reactor. So, I mean, they're not building from scratch. They're taking kind of concept designs that we already use these small reactors on submarines, but we haven't built them on land anywhere. But of course, in theory, if it works on a submarine, it should work on land. That's not the issue. The issue is, can we make them quickly and can we make them affordable and can we just almost factory print these things because they're smaller, they have smaller capacity, can you a lot more of them.
How many households would this
dot them around
with a small?
I mean, again, it's different estimates depending on different kinds of reactors. The idea is you could have a city and just have a couple of small modular reactors for that city. That's the idea. So, and then another city could have a couple of, and a village might have one. The idea, if you look at the idea, I think, this is a really good idea. And the main thing behind it that means it might work is there's a lot of private money and there's a lot of private organizations looking at siting, design, building, getting funding themselves. So they're doing it without government. Mm-hmm. The only barrier really is NIMBYism. Like the barrier is, will people let us site this?
Have people been letting them site it? I mean, are there
it's interesting actually because there's a company, a big startup in the US, I did some consultancy communication work for, and they got the permission, planning permission to site this reactor. They got, government approval. It's all going to go ahead. And the protests in this site where they're trying to put it was so extreme that they have given up.
Right. Because they were worried about another Chernobyl, were they, in this? They're
protesting. They literally got the pastor out there, like, giving speeches. Mm-hmm. You can't come into our community. I think some of it is a little bit of a failure of like communicating on the ground first and getting those people to this isn't big scary nuclear. No. Not to say that nuclear is scary, but
what is literally the worst?
They can't melt down. Small reactors can't.
Look, they can't.
They just can't. So there's a lot you can sell. They don't create a lot of high level waste. There's a lot of things you can sell, but it will be probably where you can see it. Whereas at the moment, large reactors, you don't see them. They're off on the coast, far away. Only the nuclear community sees it, and they will approve anyway because they're all connected in some way and have jobs related and blah, blah, blah. They're the highest accepting people of nuclear tech. If you go into a community where it's just some scary idea from The Simpsons, they're probably going to not like that, and you need to do some of the communication first.
But you need to bribe people in the local area, I think. Just say, look, you
think
want
that-
cheaper
I mean,
electricity.
I think that's what they were saying is, what do we get out of it?
Yeah.
You know, there's a risk here. What do we get out of it? There isn't a risk.
Discount.
But I think there was a disparity between the company going, well, everyone knows there's no risk. We put out lots of advertising and we've got all this approval, and they have. But it doesn't matter if the community, we were trying to cite it. And I think this would happen here too. I think this would happen here.
For sure. It was go, why take the chance?
They'll still, well, this company that I spoke to was very kind of, we put all this money into, and they have really good advertising, really good billboards, good messaging. Can't fault that. But they weren't, their whole thing was, isn't this a good new technology? To other people, it's still just nuclear. It doesn't matter if it's fusion and I'm going to get free energy for life. If it's still nuclear and I'm scared, then I'm scared.
Yeah, but I think people become less scared quite quickly if they offered a few ready.
Yeah, I think, well, the point that it was at was so polarized with so many like heated protests that I think they just said, we're just going to pull out of that site and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that hopefully this is another thing. It all happens, it's not very transparent. And that means that sometimes the lessons aren't learned that need to be learned. And I think if it was me personally, I would cite the reactors in regions where they've had them before, because that is the highest support already. Like you literally have places like Wilfer here.
In Cumbria or whatever.
Highest, when you look at the polls, these people completely support this technology. Everybody knows somebody that worked there, even if they were just a cleaner there. You know, they know somebody, or they went on a school tour there when they were little. So they've had good stories to overwrite the old kind of Simpsons type stuff. That's easy, pushing an open door. I would start there, and then once people see there is a benefit to the community, they are getting cheaper electricity because it's localized, right? It's decentralized. That's the whole point. Then you might get other regions kind of going, okay, and they've not had no accidents and they're all fine. Maybe we should. I think that is the way that I would.
And what about building the big ones? Or would that not be necessary?
So the idea is that if you build enough of these, then you don't need the big ones. I personally am a big fan of the big ones just because they are so powerful, and how sad that we abandoned such a powerful technology because people are still afraid of it.
But who's going to build those?
Well,
EDF or something?
we haven't been able to.
There's not many suppliers.
There's EDF. You know, we've had deals fall through here where we've tried to get funding from other companies. I mean, the thing, they are expensive up front, but they're not expensive long term. But we don't think that long term.
No.
And no one in charge who runs for 4 years or whatever is going to think in 60 years this will still be running.
No.
It will be the build down. But that would make a big difference if we could think that, and if there were more investment incentives maybe as well. Once the electricity gets cheaper, you get more back, for example, for putting that money in to begin with. But it's such huge amounts. And I think, now that there are so many companies making the small ones, all the focus has gone away from large ones. So we don't have commitments to build. After Hinkley's done and then Sizewell, we don't have any new commitments, which I think is a mistake, because you'll finally have all that expertise at Sizewell and you'll just lose it straight away. They're not going to go into SMR technology. If anything, there's less jobs. So I think that's a big mistake. We should always keep that human capital around, I think.
Yeah, a bit of both. But I think the idea of having an ultra-local power station is very exciting. So I want to close by mentioning this little pamphlet that you wrote 2 chapters for, Not Invented Here. So this is more about the sort of, I don't know what you call it, the political science perhaps, or maybe the psychology of environmental groups. In your case, you wrote about opposition to GMOs and farming technology as well as nuclear. Can you sum up what you think is really driving these people? You've already mentioned that some of the things that they do turn out to be completely contrary to what they claim they want to do. So what is it that we're really driving them a lot of the time?
It is the nature fallacy, but it's also, look, I'm just going to be bold and say it. People who have grown up with immense privilege and abundance are idolizing poverty and living in poverty because isn't it so simple and isn't it less complicated, and you don't have to have injections for things and you don't have to go into hospital to have checkups for things. I know it sounds absurd, but that's the idyllic...
The noble peasant.
Right, and I've been to some of these communities. When I was hanging out with the hippies, I would go and visit, and that was essentially how they were trying to live. and the kids aren't vaccinated and they're running around outside it and they don't have to go to school. Things that we have fought for, that have developed humanity, so much, and our thinking and our capability, they want to do away with all of it. They think it's a mistake. That's at the core. Now, you might speak to someone in these movements and they might say that's not the case, but it's because they haven't dived that deep into where the beliefs actually come from. And if you keep questioning and again, you might not be able to, because it might say no questions. But if you can get there at the basic core of this philosophy, these beliefs of this traditional kind of Luddite movement, is we went wrong in how we live, and we should go back to being as close as possible to how we naturally lived, which is cave people, right?
Yeah.
Is cave people. And we still want we want a shelter, and we don't want to live in cave. We want a nice house, and we want but we want to be on the land. We don't want anybody to tell us we have to do anything, and we don't have to do anything all day. But obviously, as I say, because you're having this belief from immense privilege and abundance, you never had to live like that. It's actually a really hard way to live, because where are you going to get your food from?
Yeah.
It's
a luxury belief. It's also massively hypocritical.
And if you look at the degrowth movement, where they are setting up these communities, right? Jen Bendel going out and saying, we're going to live off the land, and we're going to give up all this amazing lifestyle and money and academia and fame, and going to go and do this. They are not living like peasants, because they still use modern technologies. I know the idea is, well, we'll wean off of them, but until you're washing your clothes by hand using river water, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
And they're still going to doctors, presumably, when they need to.
When they get sick, well, they'll try to avoid it, because that's the thing. Like the vaccine's preventative, right? But the vaccines are preventative, so they can avoid it.
Right.
But the people who are anti-vaccine will still get medicine when they're sick. When they absolutely have to, they will.
Yeah.
So they're not against doctors. But one intervention's seen as bad, and the other one's not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that is quite right. Let me hold up the book for people to see. This is now out as of February the 4th. Energy is Life by Zion. Thank you very much indeed, Zion, for coming in. Thank you very much, folks at home, for watching. Do keep an eye on the IEA YouTube account and our Twitter feed and all the other socials, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.